This is my son-in-law, Ben, and we are building a countertop right here for a cabinet that we're putting in his house. So we're kind of along a little ways on this project already. We've milled all this wood down. Some of this wood actually helped run the sawmill that cut it up, so that's kind of cool. This is walnut, which is the best kind of wood. We just love this stuff. And we have plate jointed these boards up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that right? Yeah, 7 boards there that we've made a plate joint. This is what the plate joint material was right here. That's what we used, and that just gave us a good alignment when we went to glue these up. But anyway, since we have it glued up, this is our first look at it. So we're going to get it up here on the table and take the clamps off and have a good look at it. So here we go. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. Right there. Sure. And then we'll come back, we'll be lifting it up. That. It's a little rough. Whoa, what happened there? It's a little bit rough, so we're going to start sanding this thing down. So we got one blemish right there. We'll get that with some 60 grit, but this is going to look great. Let's get the clamps off. Okay, we sanded off the bottom side. We also scraped it. That's just to get the big boogers that were on the bottom side when we glued it up, so that when we go to put it on the cabinets, we don't get hung up on some crazy thing that lifts it up a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch. Now this is the money side though. This is the side where we selected all the boards that we wanted on top, and doesn't it look good? That is looking really cool. So now it's gotten a little bit furry since we planed it, because after we glued it, we wiped down the top so that we didn't have all them boogers on it. So now we're gonna go through, we're gonna bring this down. We're gonna go, let's see, we'll start with the 60 because we do have a couple places. And then we're gonna go down to 80 and then 120. You know, we'll go 100, 120. We'll probably stop at 120. And then we've got to make another cut on this thing because we want to make this look thick. So we're going to cut the edge of this off. We have plenty of width right now, and then we're going to glue it onto the bottom side. But I wanted to bring this into something getting close to finished before we go and do that. So, what do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. Bit of burn towards the end. Most of it looks good. leading edge of this countertop is going to look this thick, and the end is also going to be exposed, so we need to make this twice as thick. So we made this a little longer than what we need so that we can cut some of this off now, and then I'm going to glue it to the underside so that the end of this will look thick, even though it isn't thick all the way through. So I've got to make a nice parallel, well, a right angle cut across there without getting any tear out or chipping, because that is the end. This is the foremost corner of where this cabinet's going to be. Of course, it's going to be against the wall, and then it's down in a corner, so that end doesn't show. But of course, the leading edge does, and this end does. So that's what I need to do now. Cut a piece of that off, and then I'm going to put it right underneath and glue it right onto the bottom there. And then it'll look super beefy. To prevent the saw from chipping out the top of this countertop, I could cut it from the underside and then the saw blade would be pulling into the grain, but I've got this piece right here, so that makes it so I can't do it. So I gotta go from the top. So I put this piece of thin plywood on here. That's gonna prevent the tear out. And then as I come off on this end here, this block of wood here is also gonna prevent this from getting any tear out on it too. I've got my clamp on here at 90 degrees with my square, so I'm ready to make this cut. I also put a brand new blade in the saw. Beautiful. Yes, that looks really nice. Was that chip there? Maybe we did get a little bit of chip out. This is going to get an 1/8 inch round over on the top, and then we're doing an OG on the bottom. Well, it looks like a little bit. That really surprises me. I wonder if that was there. I don't know. Got one little chip. I'm not going to let it bother me. Well, let's look at the end here. And the end made it just fine too, so that's good. There we go. Good squeeze out. After much sanding, it is looking very good. We're really happy with this. I have run a tacky cloth across this several times. Now it's been over 24 hours since we did any sanding down here. So the air is fairly clean. So I'm going to apply the first coat of finish now. The cabinet that this counter is going to go on has an outlet inside of it. When we put it up to the wall, there was an outlet along that wall, so we cut the back of the cabinet out and we re-flush mounted the outlet inside of the cabinet. So what I want to do is I want to drill a hole in this countertop so that if my daughter wants to, she can run a cord down this hole and plug in, and then there could be a lamp, or sometimes I know women like to have little lit up things, you know, the cord can even go up behind the shelves that are going to be above it, and there can be something. I've seen lit up turtles and the little like mini Tiffany lamps, things like that. And so I want to put a hole in this countertop, and I've got a nice Forstner bit here, but in order to be able to drill a Forstner bit without a drill press, you got to drill a hole in a piece of wood and then clamp it onto whatever it is you want to put the hole in. And this countertop, I could maybe try to wrestle it over onto the drill press, but I'm here by myself. It's kind of hard to do that. So this method works. So I'm just going to drill a hole through here. On the bottom side, I've got another piece of wood that's backed up so that when I come through, it won't blow out on the bottom side. And this hole right here is going to keep me nice and centered. A little bit of beeswax. There it is, the white chips. That's my backer board. Yeah. Just to be sure, I'm gonna clean it up there. Yeah, we're through. Okay, like that. Look at that. Boy, nice cut too. Looks really sweet around there. Let me show you the bottom. No blowout down here. Now I just need to add a little bit of this poly finish that I put on here. Well, I'll sand it a little bit and then I'll put the finish down on here. And then we got a nice hole for a cord to go through. Here's a cord plug. Yep, go right through there. And you know what? A picture frame or something will get set on this counter and you won't even notice this hole. We're heading over to Gina and Ben's with the countertop. We got the countertop loaded and all the tools I think we're gonna need. We'll see how it works out. Ben does have some tools, so if we get into a pinch, probably he can cover us. This should be great. It's gonna look great by the end of the day. Doesn't that look beautiful? Plenty of overhang. Now we've got to scribe it into place. Now tell me there's no way that screw can come through the top. No, there isn't.
All right.
Okay. That would ruin my day. Here we go. That's it. We got the spacers on. We've done all the scribing on this side here. So now we're ready for the final fit. We've already test fitted it. We got a nice tight fit here. I'll pull you in close in a minute and I'll show you. All right, Ben, grab that in. We're gonna flip this over.
Here, can you hold this? Hold this. Thank you.
Oh, are you helping?
All right.
Yeah, be careful with that.
All right. Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll just glue a couple boards together.
That's all there is
and
to
then
it.
we'll sand it and then
Put it on.
Yeah.
Easy.
Simple.
It's a
All right.
weekend project.
Let's get a close look at it. Here's the plywood that we have that are going to make up the sides for the shelf that go above the cabinet. This is a piece of salvaged plywood, and you can see it's got some rather large holes in it. So I'm going to plug those holes before we go cutting this up. So I need to cut some plugs. Here's a small scrap piece of plywood I have that is 7 ply. Actually, it's a higher grade plywood than this piece we're going to use. But I'm going to use this to make my plugs. By using a drill bit, I can determine exactly what size this hole is. And boy, 3/4 inch, just barely. It's an interference fit there. So that's okay. I tried the next smaller one and it was way too loose. So this is a 3/4 inch hole. Okay, what I've done here is I've put a dowel rod in the head, and then I put my blank that I just cut out on the bandsaw, and then I ground the corners off just to kind of get it in the ballpark. And then I pushed my live center up against it, so this is just being held in here by friction. Now I believe I can come across here, and with the lathe, I can turn this piece of plywood down to the 3/4 of an inch that I need. And this is going to be my gauge. When that fits on there, then I know I'm down to the size I need. Let's see how this goes. Now the wrench fits on there loose. That's about what I had on the drill bit. There, so let's pull this off. Okay. Well, that took longer than it really should have, but boy, isn't that nice? It's a nice plug. Okay, I need 12 of these. All done. Nice and round. They do have a little dimple in the end that I'll have to fill with wood filler, but this should work pretty well. got the big holes plugged with the plugs I turned on the lathe, and then I used a plug cutter and filled the other holes, the smaller ones, and actually I had to drill them out to 3/8 because I didn't have a smaller plug cutter. So everything, there's a couple of small screw holes that I'm just going to leave, and those will get filled with some kind of a wood filler, and that'll be good because this is all going to get painted, so it'll be just fine. But I think it turned out pretty nice. Let me give you a closer look. That second cut was just to knock off this little edge. This is the edge that's been knocking around for months, getting loaded and unloaded and dragged through the house and down the stairs. It's just a factory edge that's pretty gross looking, but now I've got a good finished cut on it. Here's an example of one of the ways you can attach these tracks to the sides of a shelf, and then you have the small brackets up here that hold the shelves up. Now, this isn't the way I wanted it, because if you look, it holds the shelf away from the sides, and I just don't like the look of this right here. So I have a solution. Mine are going to be nice and flush, if you look here. Now, what I've done, of course, is with my dado blades, I cut out a dado in my verticals here that are wide enough for my bracket. And then I didn't know how to get it to start and stop, so I just decided to run it the full length. And then I've added these little strips in here and glued these in the area where the bracket isn't. So now I'm going to sand this off. There's a slight lip right here, but I've got one right here that I haven't done yet. You can see where I've cut the dado in, and then I've got my brackets there, and then here's my strips that I made. So I'm just gonna glue those in and cut them off nice and flush at the bottom. You can see that one's done. And after I sand that down and paint it, then that will disappear. And these are gonna get painted white, I think, although I was considering leaving them this color, but I don't think I'll do that, but we'll see. Anyway, that one's done. Let's do this one. Here's my filler piece. So that's gonna go right in this slot. And I made a mark across all of my uprights where my bracket is gonna start. So to start with, I'm just gonna lay a conservative amount of glue down in this groove. I don't need a lot of squeeze out in this area. And then I'm gonna line it up with my mark that I made. Like that. The end. Like that. And I'll lay in the second one. Nice. I need to cut a notch in the back of the plywood right below the stationary shelf and clear at the top right beneath the top plate that goes on here. There's going to be a stringer that goes across here that's going to allow me to screw this to wherever the studs are in the wall. Same with this one here. Here's what I came up with. Now, this is the area I'm going to hog out, and the upper bearing is going to run here and here. Oh, I got to bring that back up so I don't get chip out on there. But anyway, it's clamped on the side there, and I've got a little board on that side. So it's all captured, except I got to bring that up. Well, my fixture did not work as good as I'd hoped. I ended up with this big tear out right here. So that'll get filled with wood filler. And here, I had an issue where my bit actually drifted out of the router and started cutting almost 1/8 of an inch deeper than it was supposed to. So now I've had to add these fillers in to get it back to the depth it was supposed to be. So that'll sand off, and after painting, you won't be able to see that at all, but it still was a hassle. The width is right, and that was, one of the important things. Here's a look at the whole size of the thing. This is the first time that I have the whole shelf unit laid out. And vertically this way, it's close to 6 feet, and this way it's just a little under 8 feet. Now, I've put in these temporary spacers here, and I'm using the floor tile also to help me keep this relatively square. Now, it's gonna have some flex in it even after I get it all assembled, but I wanted to start out at least as square as I could get it. Now, the other thing I've done is this piece of plywood and that piece of plywood are just spacers. And then I didn't want to cut up another piece of plywood, but I've got 2 more spacers here. These were all cut at the same time on the table saw, so I know they're exactly the same length. So that way I'll be sure that I'll be able to make just one size of shelf, and they'll be interchangeable between all three of these bays. And then also, since I cut these on the table saw, I've got beautiful right angles here, so that's keeping everything nice and square. Now, since this is going to be clear up to the ceiling, the top of this unit does not get seen. So I'm gonna be able to screw in, just face screw onto the top of this unit, and I won't need to plug the holes or anything. So that will be removable, because if I actually screwed and glued this thing together down here, I would not be able to get it out of the shop, which can happen, but I'm aware of the limitations here. Also, being able to haul it over to my daughter's house, that would also pose quite a problem too, because that's a pretty good size piece of equipment here, or piece of furniture. So I'm going to drill the holes and put the screws in on the top. Got all my rails cut now, and I've got them dadoed in right here on the middle ones, but on the ends I'm going to cut pocket joints here and here, 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 there, there, and there. So that's what's up next. So that's how this tool works. Cuts these grooves in here, and then you run the screw in. You run the screw in from this side. And you're wondering, why would you buy what basically amounts to a dedicated router mounted on a base and a little more fixture to it, when you can buy the bare bones Craig jig for 18 bucks, or the most deluxe one for about 120. This thing was somewhere in the 350 range. This was developed just about the same time as the Craig jig was being developed. And my dad bought this, and it only was in production for, I don't know, maybe 2 years at the most. Not very long, because most people saw an easier way, and that's the Craig jig. But what the beauty of this thing is, that it's got over the Craig jig, is this slot is long enough that when you put the screw in there, the screw has the ability to get parallel with the face. So you can put a longer screw in, and you don't have to be concerned about the Craig jig, you know, the screw is always going like that. Well, it's not too hard to make sure you don't put too long a screw in. But with this one, you actually can get a longer screw in, and the screw is going in parallel with the surface of the wood. That's the idea behind this fixture. Now, I have a Craig jig here in the shop, and I could be doing these this way, I think, somewhere around here. Anyway, this is the way I'm going to do it, just because I have it. I only have 18 more of these holes to cut and drill. I've got all my boards located here, and I'm ready to screw them in. This way I'll be able to disassemble this unit to be able to move it. Now, it's important with this system that you use a screw that has a right angle shoulder on it, because if you screwed that in to this pocket hole with that radius on there, it's like guaranteed it will split. But with that hard 90-degree shoulder there, then it will not. So that's another thing that's necessary with this system. Second coat of sanding sealer onto the paint. I have the second coat of paint on my brackets and the first coat of paint on all the wood verticals and other pieces here. So it's going very well. I didn't get great coverage, but that's okay for a first coat. I glued up a panel right here. These are going to make up the stationary shelves that go here, here, and here. So I just need to unclamp this. I'll sand this down. I'll rip it into 3 boards, cut them to length, and they'll be ready to go in. The installation has begun. Here's the existing cabinet, and we've got all of our parts over here. It's all disassembled now, and we're going to put it together on the floor right here, and then we'll stand it up and we'll do a test fit. Before we get too far, we're going to add another access hole like this one right here. There's an outlet in behind there. Well, there's also another outlet down here, and I had forgotten about that when we did the counter, so I'm going to add another hole right back here so we can drop cords down there and be able to use that outlet. Hole like that, and I put a nice radius on it. Probably not going to bother finishing that because I didn't bring the polyurethane with me. But this'll end up, I mean, it's going to be a photograph or something will be put in there, so I'm not going to worry about that. We just about have it assembled here on the floor. Then we'll be setting it up and see how it fits. Wish us luck. All right, here is our first look at it. We still have a little work to do, actually quite a bit of work still, but great news is it fits. Now what we need to do is there's a piece of trim right here that we've got to cut off so that we can slide it over the rest of the way, and then it'll be on and centered. We are on the cabinet completely, but it's going to come clear back to this surface right here. So it looks like a continuation. Very happy. We've got that nipped off there. Now we're ready to slide it in again. All right, lifting. Okay, some more. Decent fit over there.
Yeah, so we gotta make sure the front is tight, right? Make sure these are still in.
That's right. All right. What do you think of that? We're kind of jazzed about it. That's going to be a lot of shelf there.
That's awesome.
Here is all the boards that are going to make up the adjustable shelves on this shelving unit. I need 10 shelves that are 10 inches wide and 29.5 inches in length. So I've got to join all these together and be able to make that up. So lots of small pieces, a few larger pieces, a lot of plate joining here. all joined and sanded, so that's cool. Here's something I don't think I've seen before. This is something that my father-in-law showed me. The last thing you do when you're finishing a wood project is take some brown paper bag. This is just a regular grocery bag like you used to get at the grocery store. And you rub that on it. So, I don't know, that would be the equivalent of maybe, I don't know, 6,000 grit sandpaper. But it just puts this nicest level of polish on it that just feels great. I mean, it's super nice. Now, what I've been doing is I just started doing this. I've taken some double-sided tape and I've taped it to a spent piece of sandpaper with my random orbit sander. And then you can see it's taken some of the finish off there, and there's a few things in there. There might be little pimples from, specks of dust that got in the finish before it dried. Anyway, I'm getting about, I get through about 2 shelves, and I think that's pretty well spent. So I'm gonna make up another one and tape it onto my sandpaper and go after this. I just cut the piece of paper bag roughly to the size of my sandpaper. And then I've got this double-sided tape, like that. Now, the tape sticks to the paper pretty good, but it really doesn't stick to the sandpaper very well because it's so dusty to start with. But it sticks well enough to do the job. So that's what I'm going to use now. Now I've got my sander set on the lowest speed it can do. And then I'll go over this thing and that will put the polish on it. The nice thing about this final process is there's no dust collection happening here, so I don't have to listen to my shop vac. So let's just hit it. You can see how much of the finish it actually took off there. And now, that is so nice. I just can't stop touching these. It is so, so nice. Now this actually feels pretty good, but there's little snags in there I can feel, and this will buff those right off. Nice tip from an old timer that I have that I can pass on to other young guys. So thank you, Owen. Well, they're heavy. There's 10 shelves here. Here we go. All right.
Crackers?
Look at that, Danny.
The crackers? I want the crackers.
So we're gonna put one up. Good, good, good.